In this video, I'm going to be repairing and painting the interior walls of a child's bedroom. And if you got kids like me, you know that they absolutely destroy the walls and make them look like garbage. In order to sell your house, it's definitely helpful to go around and ensure that your walls are free of holes and dents and hit it with a light coat of paint and make it look like new. So I'll show you some of the damages done. You can see there's things like pinholes. There's scratches from toys being dragged across the wall. There's areas where the drywall has been chipped out by chairs or furniture or other toys. There's bad repairs from previous homeowners. There's old plug holes. And there's areas where the kids have tried to glue stickers down or whatever, so we'll try and fix all of this stuff and show some quick ways to get a good paint finish. Some of the tools I'm going to use is the sanding block sponge. I kind of like these for sanding the drywall, and a bunch of different drywall taping knives or putty knives. I'm going to use this red-handled 8-inch one the most, but here's a couple different ones that you could use. It doesn't really matter, you're just filling in some holes. It's not that big of a deal. I do use this 1-inch one where the 8-inch is just too big. For the compound, I'm just using this ultralight drywall compound, mainly because I have a ton of it from working on my basement, but there's all sorts of different brands and variations that you can use. The other thing that you're going to want to have handy is a flathead screwdriver to get your switch plate covers off, because you do not want to paint over those. Don't be an animal. So you can see, here's where I'm going to use the small putty knife. And pretty easy, fill the void, and then just add a very small amount on top. You don't want to overdo it. Moving over to the larger 8-inch drywall knife. It's the same concept. Make sure that the holes are completely filled, and then just do a skim coat over top of that to ensure that the void is filled with a small amount on top. You don't want to overdo it where you're going to be sanding a lot more than you're going to want to, and you don't want to underdo it either. If you get little air bubbles or pockets like this, you're going to want to get rid of those, because when you go and sand it, those are going to show through, and they're going to show through your paint. So there's the whole room complete. Although this room looked good when you're standing in the doorway, it absolutely, on closer inspection, was not good at all. So you can see there's literally dozens of holes and damage marks on each wall. Now, while we're waiting for the drywall compound to dry enough that we can start sanding it, I'm going to go around and take off all the covers on the outlets as well as the light switches. This is a critical step to making your work look clean and professional. If you get paint all over your receptacle covers, it's going to look pretty amateurish. Also, while you're waiting for things to dry, you can clean up things like pen or marker that are on the baseboards, or in my case here on the light switch. I find this Goof Off product is excellent at cleaning tough to clean scuff marks like pen and Sharpie. So obviously this is red Sharpie on a light switch, and a little bit of rubbing, turn the lights on and off about 25 times, and it does come clean. Now here's some paint transfer from the dresser. I'm just going to give it a rub down again, a little bit of Goof Off on this white cloth, and it comes clean as well, no problem. Now I use the shop vac when I'm sanding the drywall compound, just to ensure that there's a minimum amount of drywall dust getting on the floor and hanging out. So I just hold the shop vac underneath it and suck it all down, and it makes the house a lot cleaner. Now there's not a huge amount of technique required when you're just doing these drywall patches. Really, as long as it's smooth and it's flush to the wall and there's no sharp edges, it's going to look pretty good when you're done. Hopefully when you put the drywall compound on, you haven't put on too much so that it doesn't require a whole lot of sanding. So once I've gone around the room and sanded all the patch marks, it looks like this. So it looks pretty bad, but the paint is going to make a big difference. So on this wall here, I'm going to do a a spot treatment on the patches first. So I'm just going to take a paintbrush, load it up with paint, and everywhere that I've sanded as a result of putting on the drywall compound, I'm just going to hit those areas with the paintbrush. What I found is that when you roll paint onto the wall, if you haven't done this, you're going to find that it dries sort of differently, and you can see the areas that you've sort of put the drywall compound on if you only want to do one coat. I recommend you do this spot treatment either with a paintbrush or with a roller. So that's what the wall looks like after I've spot treated all the areas that I've repaired with just the paintbrush. So you can see it pretty clear as day, but we'll let that dry. And now I'm going to do this other wall, but I'm going to do a complete coat of paint on it without doing the spot treatment first, and I'll show you what the difference is. So I'm using this Performance Select paintbrush, which is actually a Home Depot paintbrush, and I really like this one. I have Wooster's and I have Purdy's paintbrushes, but I found this one is excellent for cutting in. So I'm going to select an area that I'm going to work first, and I'm going to do the cut against the ceiling. I like to just do a couple strokes a little bit further away from the ceiling first, or away from the trim, and then cut in closer on the second pass without very much paint on the paintbrush. I find it produces a nice close line to the ceiling without any paint transfer onto the ceiling. When you're doing a wall that's the same color as the wall beside it, you can be a little bit more aggressive into the corners. When going around trim, I kind of use the same technique. Get fairly close with a stroke or two, and then do a close cut in, kind of building up the pressure on the paintbrush, and then getting in close so that you're just doing a nice tight line against the trim work. Now you don't have to do the cut with the paintbrush first. You could roll first. Some people like to do that. My preferred way of doing it is to cut with the paintbrush and then roll the rest of the wall. I also generally do not cut the entire room. I usually do a cut in a section and then roll that and then cut the next section and sort of work around the room like that. Although you do have the option of cutting an entire wall and then rolling it. The paint that I'm using is Sherwin-Williams, and it's a pretty low sheen, so it doesn't show imperfections as much. You can use whatever kind of paint you want. I generally use Benjamin Moore, but this Sherwin-Williams is pretty good as well. Now for this roller, I'm using a smooth finish roller, and I've loaded it up with paint, and now I'm just sort of slowly and smoothly rolling it into the area that I've already cut, and then I incorporate the cut area with the roller as close as I can to the trim as well as the ceiling without coming so close that there's a risk of me either hitting the trim or ceiling. For the ceiling, I usually do come across like as you see there, and then work vertically, and that I just find it integrates the rolled portion with the cut portion a little bit better, but there's all sorts of different techniques that people use, so whatever works best for you. The only other recommendation I have is to ensure that you're always looking for any drips or areas that got too much paint where it kind of looks like there's paint droplets left on the wall, and if you do see that, just roll over those again to ensure that they're integrated with the paint so that they don't stand out when you're done. And once you got your section done, you're just going to carry on with the rest of the wall. So that's what the two walls that I've done look like. The back wall's got the full coat, and this wall has just got the spot treatment. So you can clearly see where the spot treatments were done with just the paintbrush. I have not rolled on top of this wall yet though. So that is not acceptable when you're about to sell your house. It's going to stand out and it's going to make your house look bad. However, I'm going to roll this wall one time and it's going to look really good. Now this wall here with the window, I have done the cut and rolled once just to show you how the difference looks, and you can still see sort of the same problem where if you look at an angle or a light hits it at an oblique angle, you can still see where I did all the patches, and that's because the drywall compound that I put on the wall is going to absorb the paint at a different rate as the rest of the wall, and you're going to see it. Maybe not with just overhead lights, but if there's sun shining in the room, hitting in the wall at an angle, it really stands out, and it does not look good either. So I'm going to have to paint this wall an entire second time, and I'll show you what it looks like after that as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint both of these walls one more time. So here's the wall that I had the spot treatments on, and you can see all those areas are gone. Even when you hit this with the oblique light, you cannot see those damaged areas. And this is just with one coat of paint after I did the spot treatments. So it looks pretty good. And here's the wall that I've painted twice now completely, and they look almost identical. I can't tell the difference, and I know where all the damaged spots were. So my recommendation, if you're going to be doing a lot of painting and have to do a lot of fix-ups to sell your house or just repair it for whatever reason, I would recommend that after you do the spackle repairs, just do the spot treatment as long as the damage isn't too extensive. Allow it to dry and then paint it, and it's going to look just as good as having done 2 coats of paint. Of course, once you're done painting, you're going to want to put your switch covers back on and put the room back together. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.